ASMR Magical Tools. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So today we're going to be discussing dream interpretation. And I have conditioned this pair of gloves in anticipation. There we go. So let's talk about, first of all, there are a couple of dreams that I will be discussing from this batch, in which I am recommending that the person use sleep wards. So the kind of sleep wards that I recommend, I will also be putting a link to my sleep protection video either here or here. I don't remember exactly which side of the screen. First of all, the Sigil of Gabriel is a very powerful tool that you can use for sleep protection. Gabriel is one of the archangels and does govern the realm of sleep protection and is a very good protector during sleep. So one thing that you can do is obtain a mirror. Now, I do recommend a mirror, so like this one has a protective covering on it, but the mirror part is still exposed. You're going to want to choose a mirror that will not break if you put it under your pillow, right? Because that would lead to other problems that sleep wards are supposed to circumvent and protect, right? Protect. But you can obtain a mirror like this. Oh, there you are. And you can paint on the mirror the sigil of Gabriel and put it under your pillow while you are asleep. I also recommend some form of bedtime prayer or spell, depending on how you feel about such things. Doing protective spells before bed. This was often why bedtime prayers were said, is because when you are asleep, you are vulnerable to certain things and can be extra vulnerable to psychic attack. I also sleep with this bag of rocks in my pillow. Inside this zippered pouch, I have these tumbled obsidian stones. These tumbled obsidian stones. And obsidian is an excellent protective stone. However, I do have a caveat for this one, which is that obsidian can make it very difficult for you to sleep because it is a very active stone as well. So start out with a few small pieces of obsidian. Well, rather, start out using other wards first. And if those other wards are unsuccessful, you may wish to step it up and use obsidian. Incorporate it into your bedroom, one or two pieces at a time, so that you are not overwhelmed by its energy. So now we're going to get into the analysis of the dreams themselves. First of all, let me say a deep and heartfelt thanks to all of you who submitted dreams for this video. It did take a little bit of time for me to accumulate enough dreams to make the video. So for those of you who submitted your dreams back in May, I do apologize that it has taken me this long to get the video made. I do hope that you will still find the contents of my analysis helpful. So the first covers dreams about weddings. I've had a recurring dream once or twice a year for as long as I can remember, that it's the morning of my wedding and there's a flurry of activity all around. My mom and my sister and my female friends are all excitedly helping me to get ready, but I have no memory of who I'm marrying or why. I don't want to disappoint everyone, so I just play along and think there must be a good reason I'm getting married even though I don't know what it is. Always very stressful and surreal. So it's interesting that this is a recurring dream for you, because weddings can often represent transitional and transformative experiences in our life. This could be a wedding, of course, but it could also be attending a higher education, college or university. It could be something like following a course of study, like becoming a doctor or a lawyer that takes a very long time. It could be getting a job. It could be any number of these things that are represented within the dream state as a wedding. Now, your feelings about what this could be are going to be the key to understanding what the dream is about. So it seems like everyone around you in the situation, your close female confidants, your sibling, your mother, these strong feminine influences in your life are all very proud of you for having achieved what was at one time considered the pinnacle of what any woman could dream of. That will translate differently in the modern day, of course. There could be some very traditional ideologies within your family unit and within your close group of friends, such that marriage is still a very important milestone to those around you. But in this case, whatever that marriage represents is going to be translated as some kind of transformative life experience. It could just be that you are being your wonderful, natural self, and that the way that this is recognized by your family and friends ends up being a bit more than your own perceptions. That they're very proud of you for being you, and you see it as no big deal and don't understand the fuss. This next dream was submitted by someone whose first initial is the letter H. That's probably even too much information. They just go by H. H says, I have been dreaming recently of a few people I no longer speak to and haven't spoken to in years. These were unhealthy, unhappy friendships, and it is best for both parties that we no longer speak. However, these people have been very pleasant to me. One that sticks out the most is what I'd like to focus on. I will simply refer to this person as A. He and I are sitting, and I cannot remember what we were sitting on or beside, but I have imagery of a dark circle around us, and then we are sitting within an area of light. Maybe we were sitting in a lighted pool or hot tub, or maybe it's beside a roaring fire, and we're sitting within the ring of light. I am telling A about my recent struggles in life, struggles with my personal projects, struggles with my depression and anxiety. Just telling him about my life, and A says to me, you need to just start over. It seems so strange to me that I was having this conversation with this person. I have no desire to speak to him ever again. He was unhealthy for me when we were friends, and it has been almost 10 years since we last saw one another. I don't feel as though I'm being called upon to contact him again. H, I absolutely agree with you. These people showing up in your dreams are very symbolic of the personal growth that you have been through already. So think about where you were with each of these people when you were acquainted with them. Think about all of the bad habits and baggage that you have already shed. And consider in your current life. Now, I'm certainly not victim blaming when I say this, or rather not victim blaming, but neurodivergent blaming. Let's say it neurodivergent blame. I'm not trying to do that here because depression and anxiety have many different roots and many different courses of treatment, resolution, and integration into the day-to-day existence. However, because these people are showing up from the past and showing up in this positive context, there could be ways that their presence in your life has been positively integrated into your current life. And that now it's time to re-examine further some of your habits, some of your problems, and some of the ways that you have chosen to cope. So that when A says to you, it's time for you to start over, what he's saying is that it is time for you once again to reevaluate the situations in your life that are causing you discomfort and trouble. You could also need to switch therapists, and that could be why he's saying you need to just start over. One thing I really like about this dream is that all of these people are coming back to you in a much more positive context, such that you understand the capacity for others to manifest positive change into their own lives, just as you have done. That's not me suggesting that it's time for you to reach out to these people. I do think they are in your past for a reason. But it's refreshing and wonderful to know that you are not entering your future relationships with baggage from these past interactions. Next, we are going to be discussing a dream which is very familiar to me, which is a dream about a haunted house. Dreams about haunted houses can often speak to our underlying feeling in our waking lives that there are parts of our daily existence which need to be exercised or taken care of. That sometimes we feel like we lack control in these areas of our lives. I have a reoccurring dream. I own a large house, half of which is new and clean and beautiful. The other half is old and haunted. Any guests know they can only enter the new parts of the house, and only I and my mother can enter the old parts of the house, as the ghosts are very dangerous. My mother passed 9 years ago. A handful of times, I've dreamt that I entered one of the bathrooms in the old part, and a woman has tried to possess me by forcing her hands into my mouth. I always wake up terrified at this, but thankfully it doesn't happen often. It is never the same house, always different, but the same dream and the same feelings of unease and awkwardness are the same when I wake. So, the first part I'm going to address is the appearance of your deceased mother in these dreams. It is very good that she has joined you there, as you know that you are protected. This is a dream for which I would recommend sleep wards. The fact that your mother, who has passed, is showing up in this old and abandoned, haunted part of the house with you, there may be rooted some trauma that the two of you had shared. Now, this doesn't mean that the trauma was between the two of you, but it could have been a shared experience which caused you trauma. The orifices. We have orifices on our face. The fact that this old woman is trying to enter your body through the mouth. All of these orifices are portals, of course, to the corporeal form. And it is very real and very possible. And I don't mean to be alarmist by saying this, that this woman could be a lower vibrational entity who is in fact trying to possess your body. I would indeed perform wards before I go to sleep to avoid ever encountering this entity in the future. It seems like this entity is not strong enough to overcome the protection that you and your mother already have in place. But as you said yourself, the ghosts in the haunted part of the house are indeed very dangerous. It might also be that you feel like you are only presenting parts of yourself to the people that you know, your guests, and that these other darker parts of yourself, which are a little bit wild and a little bit out of control, do remain hidden. The next dream is very simple, but I'm sure it's common and can be quite scary to those who experience it. This was submitted by George M., who writes, "I'm in a car I cannot control. The brakes do not work, and I am scraping the side of the car against other cars and other objects." George, thank you for sharing this dream. The fact that you have no control over the car represents things over which you need to take control in your daily waking life. It could be that you feel many of these things are outside of your control, and thus, when they are worked out in the dream state, they manifest as something terrifying over which you have very little control, if any at all. The next dream contains elements of possible past life regression, as well as historical elements from the dreamer's life. I dreamed I was in the Renaissance era, attending a religious ceremony in a golden chapel, though there was no altar. There was only a platform which had 2 steps where a priestess was standing. She was facing away from me and looking up. She was wearing a brilliant white robe covered in runes. There were candles everywhere. I was kneeling in front of the steps. Next to me was an elegant royal family, also kneeling with their eyes closed. There was a queen wearing a brilliant golden gown with a cage skirt and a corset. The fabric was reflecting the light from the candles. She had a powdered wig as well as a diamond crown on her head that was too bright for me to look at. She opened her eyes and turned to look at me. The rest of the family stared, and the priestess as well. They summoned a servant, and he led me out of the chapel and into a dark forest. None of the trees had any leaves. They were black and winding and stretched high up into the sky. There were no stars. We walked for what seemed like forever, until we arrived at an impossibly tall version of my suburban house. The trees ended here. We went inside and walked into the living room. I saw myself as a child, sitting with my mother on the couch. I was wearing my pink housecoat with hearts on it, and I was being overly energetic. I could tell my mother was annoyed with me, but she was still being very warm. Then the room went dark. My mother and my child self turned to dust. Then a creature came out of the corner. It seemed to be sucking out all of the light around it. It had very, very long limbs, but no face. The servant tried to fend it off with a red axe, but the creature took the axe and drove it into my skull. I was dead, but I could see my body on the ground. The servant started speaking softly to the creature in words that I didn't understand. It let the servant leave through the front door. I realized that I didn't exist anymore, and everything turned to dust. So this is a very complex dream. It's entirely possible that this person regularly documents her dreams and thus is able to recall a lot of detail. I would also want to know her experience with lucid dreaming. So this part with the Renaissance era very well could be past life memories coming through in the dream state. There seems to be some kind of initiation going on here. such that the experience you had with the house showing up wide and looming in your field of vision as your suburban home could end up appearing slightly different depending on what era this dream were to occur, if that makes sense. Your mother could have been annoyed with you in the dream because your activity is what was drawing that creature. That excess of energy was feeding that creature and bringing it to you. Your inability to control that emotion might be something that you are grappling with in your waking life. Something that either you wish to tame, or inversely, perhaps it's time for you to come out of your shell a bit. I'm not sure if there was some memory from your early childhood around the time that you would have had this nice house coat, of a situation where you came under attack for some kind of emotional outburst. On one hand, it might be good for you to ward if you're having dreams like this. I don't think that it will cause these dreams to go away. But what it does is it increases your power in the dreams. I'm not sure what kind of sleep work you are doing, but I would recommend, if you work with your ancestors, communicating with them about it as well, because that could be the people that you're seeing here in the Renaissance era portion of the dream. This dream seems to have a lot of alchemical elements to it. The transmutations and absorptions of energy going on between you and the monster. The idea that these, possibly your ancestors from the past, have chosen you to combat this issue on everyone's behalf. I would be interested to know if this dream ever recurs for you, or if elements pop up from time to time in other dreams. Just because you did not destroy the creature in this dream does not mean that the mission wasn't successful necessarily. I would not be able to speak on that. But it is possible that the mission was still successful, even if you were destroyed in the dream. The servant was able to leave, and that is why I believe it was some kind of test or initiation. Please do let me know if this helped, or if you have additional questions about the contents of your dream. Another common dream element that people find troubling is being trapped somewhere, like a maze or a labyrinth, and being unable to escape. A maze can be symbolic of frustration or feeling a lack of direction in your waking life. A maze or labyrinth, or the inability to find your way out of a place, can also mean that your subconscious mind is really, really working on a problem that you are trying to solve. One viewer writes, I keep having these recurring dreams where I'm trapped in labyrinths. Once I was trapped underground many years before finally finding an opening with daylight shining through. In my most recent 2 labyrinth dreams, however, there was no resolution. In both these dreams, I was lost or trapped inside huge buildings with many corridors, and the exits were always either blocked, or when I ask for help, I'm directed to an exit only to find that it's a trick. These dreams are very frustrating and make me want to seek answers for some kind of resolution. Maybe with some understanding, I can be better equipped to find a way out next time I should find myself lost in my own dreamscape. And then they say, thank you for all that you do. Thank you very much. I'm so glad that you submitted this dream. As I mentioned on the front end, there are a few factors going on here. And what I recommend as a resolution to this, there could be something from way in the past, a time in your life where you did feel trapped, and you could be processing those things. And the closer that you get to a long-term resolution on those feelings, it's possible that it will seem further and further away. The understanding must be there deep inside of you that you have escaped, and that you never have to go back there if you don't want to. In fact, in dreams, it's really your choice as to whether or not you want to stay there. It may take some practice, but you might find that you are able to determine your own way. To say, on this next landing, on this flight of stairs, there's going to be a door. I'm going to open that door, and I will be able to go wherever I choose. Your mind might be occupying itself with puzzles to while away the hours while your eyes are closed. Another aspect of this, which might be adjacent, might be happening, might not be happening. You could be processing problems from your waking life, but in your dream state, often things that are happening at levels down here look slightly different on the surface. They don't look the same as what is actually going on, such that your subconscious mind is puzzling over the events that you are trying to resolve in your waking life and find a solution. And whether or not your subconscious mind finds that solution is going to predicate whether or not you find a way out of the maze, possibly. But the two don't necessarily have to be linked either. So what I recommend for this, obviously, sleep wards, prayers, but more importantly, if you are able to take time before you go to sleep and prepare your mind and body for a positive dream experience, which means spending enough time before you go to bed not concerning yourself with your waking affairs, but setting up the potential situation for your dreams to be very restful and very relaxed, not have this level of stress bubbling up into the dream state. Possibly taking a bath before bed and soaking in salt water, which is an excellent ward. There are things like, I mentioned before, bedtime prayers and spells. You could also choose to do a guided meditation, or obviously if you're watching my video, you probably love other ASMR channels. The element of this that is important is that these guided meditations should be geared towards restful sleep. If you are choosing Reiki or guided meditation videos in which you are doing too much work, or that are meant to be clearing, or are meant to address some other issue in your waking life, you may find yourself trapped within that maze of self-discovery while you are asleep. I hope this helps, and thank you for submitting this dream. The next dream is a really fun and beautiful experience shared with us by Elena. I really appreciate you submitting this dream because while it is very fascinating and can be very rewarding and informative to address dreams which are of a more troubling nature, it's also very sweet and refreshing to get a dream that is overwhelmingly positive. Elena writes, I have recurring dreams that involve the familiar coastal town I grew up in and love, being partially submerged in water. People often get around by boat, and there are parts of buildings and random pieces of land tall enough to barely poke out of the water. I feel comfortable and happy and see old friends which I have not talked to for years, but remember very dearly. I remember having lots of autonomy, getting to explore the town as I wish, simply going from one thing to the next with no pressure or rush. The water is always vividly clear and inviting. So, first of all, I would assume that, Elena, you have a lot of water energy in your natal chart. Even if you don't, growing up in a coastal area is enough to put salt water in your veins for sure. The presence of water in your dream. Water as an element represents our emotions and our feelings. And it is though you have unleashed this flood of positive emotions and love upon your familiar hometown. The fact that you are interacting with people very positively and are happy and free to be in this place is a wonderful and beautiful, refreshing energy to have in dreams, and is a great way to get a wonderful night's sleep. But simply the fact of this coastal town being partially underwater, I would see that more as an expression of your love and overwhelming emotion for the place than as anything possibly destructive or negative. Thank you for submitting this very beautiful dream. This next dream is very similar in some ways to the haunted house dream, but there's an important distinction to make in that rather than the content of the dream being repeated necessarily, the most important part of the dream that is repeated is the location. Dawn Michelle from Iowa writes, I didn't think I would submit anything until this morning when I had a reoccurring dream. It's not so much the dream, but the location. Been having this reoccurring dream location for years. It's always pitch black night. I'm in a very old abandoned hotel. No lights, huge open space with wide staircases. You can tell people had lived there before, not just hotel rooms, but small apartments. I always go up the wide wooden staircase to the first floor, totally paranoid that a woman below in the shadows is watching me. It's so dark, I start to crawl on the floor to feel around. Sometimes while I'm crawling, I close my eyes very tightly and see demons inside the woodwork on the floor. I get to the top of the stairs. In every reoccurrence of the dream, I go left, down the hall, to a room on the end, on the right. This right or this right? I always get confused because it's opposite for you guys, I think. I always go in with trepidation, sensing something benevolent inside the room. Plus, I strongly feel like I'm not supposed to be there. The room is a studio apartment, white painted walls, empty except for a few things laying on the floor, nothing really remarkable. That's usually all I remember, except this time. The room led to another room. I opened the door, and this second room was filled with children's toys, dirty, dusty, strewn about, and some are mine from when I was really, really little, like in my crib little. But awake me, not dreaming me, has never seen these toys. And then closes by saying, P.S. I love your channel. Thank you. Thank you for submitting this dream. There is quite a bit going on here, and I'd like to unpack it. So, when you have recurring locations in your dreams, it is possible that this is a location for you on the astral plane, that you are going there possibly to meet with others, or in this particular case, and I would be very cautious with this, and definitely set up sleep wards. It sounds like somebody is trying to corner you here. Now, this could go one of two ways, right? I'm definitely getting heavy Coraline vibes from this dream. I'm not super familiar with Coraline in that I've never seen the movie or read it, but I understand the gist of the plot. Basically, that this entity, this woman that you perceive to be stalking you from the downstairs level, could be appealing to your sense of nostalgia with the toys, such that they are trying to gain your confidence. Now, it's very difficult to know whether or not this particular entity has good intentions and is possibly a deceased loved one, possibly someone you never met, or who would have died when you were very small. This entity could also be very dangerous to you, and there would be no way to know unless you were able to confront it without putting yourself in too much danger. Now, setting up these sleep wards, and especially the sigil of Gabriel, will give you some comfort of and reassurance in that he will not allow lower vibrational entities to approach you. So that if this is someone who is deceased, that you wouldn't necessarily recognize, that person would not necessarily be warded off by Gabriel. But it's very difficult to know what their intentions are if they won't confront you face to face. And that's kind of the bottom line here. The fact that this person does not feel comfortable approaching you directly is making you uncomfortable. So set up some sleep wards and see where it goes from there. And that way you will not be at risk of anything happening if this entity's intentions are indeed malevolent. So now we've gotten to the very last dream for the video today. Hello, I would like to tell you about 2 dreams. The first one is a recurring dream I usually have where I am waiting for a person to arrive, but the person never arrives. It has 2 variants. In one, I get messages and calls to my cell phone that the person is on the way, but never arrives. And the other is that the person has already arrived at the agreed place, but we never meet. For example, if we meet in the park, I go all around the park several times, but I never find the person. Usually, the person is my boyfriend. I find it curious because he has never stood me up, although sometimes he's a little late, but not too late. The other dream happened to me last week. It was very vivid and has not left my head. I was with my boyfriend, and the person says that the boyfriend appears in their dreams almost every day. So that's good. It means the boyfriend is very protective of you, and there is a good energy there. Driving a car when we stopped in the middle of a forest. It was warm and very humid. The day looked sunny, but the dense foliage of the trees did not let much light through. We could hear birds and insects all around us. We get out of the car, and when I stepped out, something crunched under my foot. It was a dry branch. I noticed that everything around me was full of dry branches, but they were joined in such a way that they looked like the skeleton of a small animal. I commented aloud, "What strange branches. They look like the skeletons of rabbits or frogs." I couldn't look up from the ground. And here they mean their head was forced downward. Until I heard my boyfriend comment in amazement, "What happened here? How is this possible?" His comment unclenches my neck, and I'm able to look up. All around the bone branches were frogs. The next thing I didn't see, but something inside me automatically understood that these frogs were dead, and something or someone had caused them to spit their skeletons out of their mouths. So here we see the mouth as a portal again. Something that caught my attention was that the car in which we were riding was right in the center. Around it in a perfect circle were the skeleton branches, and surrounding it all in another perfect circle were the frogs. I am very curious to hear your interpretation. Como siempre, muchas gracias. De nada. It's my pleasure. So, these anticipation dreams, especially regarding other people, and especially because your boyfriend features heavily in both of these dreams, it does seem like he has a very positive and protective energy towards you in your waking life. But there's still the possibility that the relationship, as good and positive as this person's influence might be in your life, might cause you stress. And that this is being expressed as a worst case scenario playing out in your dreams over and over. There are some ritualistic type elements to this dream, the second dream, with the frogs. However, I don't think that the dream is necessarily demonic or lower vibrational in nature. Frogs are a very fascinating animal. They are amphibians. They start out their life in one form and end it in another. They can absorb oxygen and moisture through their skins. And they are considered a sentinel species. And what a sentinel species is in the environment, if there are any factors that are dangerous, bacteria, pollutants, or otherwise, the first animals to be affected by these detrimental factors are the sentinel species, and monitoring them can protect all of us from environmental problems if we pay attention. I would treat these frogs in that way. There are the birds and the insects all around which have not been affected by this phenomenon. You can tell that because you can hear them. The birds and the insects creating the living sounds of the dark, dense forest that you are in. You mentioned that not much light is able to penetrate into this environment. So you are relying on other senses. It seems like a big sense that you use in this dream is your hearing, the crunching of the bones underfoot, or the dry branches rather, the sound of the birds, and the insects, such that you are hearing certain things, but perhaps not fully trusting your senses. Deep inside, you understand that something is intrinsically wrong. But is this the case? I really don't sense that there is a problem in your relationship from what you have written here. I'll leave that up to your discernment, of course. But one thing that might help is some cognitive behavioral therapy exercises wherein you go through worst case scenarios, you pin down the sources of anxiety in your life, and you kind of go through that list of anxieties and things that you perceive might be issues. You go through these things and work through them one by one. There are lots of exercises that are available online for this. And I would recommend this because your boyfriend is such a prominent feature in these dreams. It does make me feel like your relationship, even though it's very good and probably nothing's wrong, is creating a lot of stress for you. So that is something that I invite you to address in your waking life. That will probably at least take you in a direction that will guide you closer to your answers. Thank you so much for sharing this dream with me. I want to say again how much I appreciate all of you who made yourselves vulnerable and reached out to me with your dream experiences. I'm going to share a dream experience of my own from last night. In this dream, I was at Dairy Queen and I was obtaining gallons and gallons of Dairy Queen blizzards in these long serving trays, these gigantic stainless steel serving trays. I knew that I had to scoop the blizzard out of the serving tray and pack it into probably like a quart size of these cardboard containers So it would have been similar to a pint container like Ben & Jerry's serves, except slightly larger, so these would have been quart size. And I was packing my blizzards into these quart size containers. One of the flavors was Nerds and cotton candy. And the other flavor I believe to have been some kind of chocolate swirl with nuts. Maybe almost like a rocky road. But not chocolate ice cream, just a chocolate swirl. Some friends, possibly more like acquaintances, are there watching me accomplish this task. And they say catty things like, "Why do you need so much ice cream? Don't you know you're going to get fat eating all of that?" To which I responded, "This is going to last me 5 years. I'm never going to have to buy ice cream again." And I continued calmly with my task. Now, anytime you have a dream featuring delicious sweeties and tasty treats, and you are not on a diet that would prompt you to have stressful food dreams, those delicious items can in fact represent a monetary windfall in your future. So, we'll just have to see how that plays out. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me here today to talk about dream interpretations. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share your own experiences down below. Please subscribe if you feel like it, or share the video with a friend, possibly who could use some insight into their own dreams. And until we meet again, I look forward to seeing you again very